Hello and welcome to another podcast edition of Taiwan Talk, a show bringing you conversations from and about Taiwan. I'm Keith Menconi. Travel. We all say we love it, getting away from it all, heading out into the great unknown. But, when push comes to shove, how often do you really go for it? If you're anything like me, when that vacation day rolls around, I may say that I'm planning a big trip out somewhere, but more often than not, I find excuses to stay home. And, I think a big reason for that is there's a part of me that's just asking, why bother? What's going to be so great about that other place when I get there? I got good restaurants here in my hometown. I've got good places to go, good things to do. Why should I, travel however many miles to get to another spot? And, roll the dice and hope that their restaurants and things to do and see are better than what I've got here. So travel, what is the point? That is the question we're going to be taking on this episode. And we've got a guy with some answers to that question, specifically answers for here in Taiwan. That guy is Richard Saunders. He is a very experienced travel and hiking expert. And he's just released a new book aimed at unlocking the secrets of Taiwan's many travel destinations. To give even homebodies such as myself a reason to make the trip. That book is Taiwan 101, Essential Sites, Hikes, and Experiences on Ilha Formosa. And Richard recently joined me at the ICRT studios to talk about it. Richard Saunders, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks, Keith, for having me back.
So you have already written so much about hiking in Taiwan and the various ways that you can travel. Some of your works that our listeners might be familiar with is Taipei Escapes, Yangmingshan the Guide, The Islands of Taiwan, Taipei Day Trips. You've covered a lot of stuff, but this is a little bit different from what you've done in the past. This is not a book specifically about hiking trails. So tell our listeners, what's the focus of Taiwan 101?
Well, the new books, there's two of them because it kind of outgrew its original idea. The idea of them is to introduce Taiwan, the whole of Taiwan, what makes it special, unique, amazing.
So a modest goal.
Yes. Well, it started as a modest goal and it kind of outgrew the original idea. And it's to introduce everything that makes it special in 101 different chapters.
And so each one of those chapters is another feature or another draw, something to do or see or be at in Taiwan.
It's a whole combination. It's really experiences. There's some hikes in there. There's experiences like festivals, traditional festivals. A couple of the oldest cities are in there. All kinds of things. Natural curiosities, some of the high mountains, the natural history, Aboriginal culture, industry, the old industries like salt mining and sugar extraction. Bit of everything that makes Taiwan special, really.
And so unlike, what a hiking book might be where you just kind of outline the trail and say, here's where you need to go. This isn't just where you need to go. It's also kind of what you need to do to prepare, what you should know about this spot to get the most out of it. What are the main things you're focusing on here?
Well, this book, compared with the hiking guides, this book is much kind of meatier. It's much heavier on the information, on the facts. So there's quite a lot of history in there. There's quite a lot of culture about the 16 Aboriginal tribes, about the Hakka people, the ancient history, the colonial history, not only the Japanese colonial history, but also the Spanish and Dutch time. It's much more factual than the other books, much heavier on the facts, on the background information that helps you to understand why these places are so significant in Taiwan.
Let's give our listeners a for example, just so that they can kind of maybe get a better idea of what we're talking about here. What would be one of the spots that was most interesting to you, and what did you include in the book about it?
There's so many. One of the things that I found most interesting, because I knew so little about it before I began writing, was the Japanese colonial period on Taiwan, how it all began in 1874 with the Mudan incident, which was when Aborigines attacked and killed some Japanese nationals, and it kind of escalated into this amazing Taiwan's recent history is mostly down to that one day when the Mudan incident, when these Japanese were killed. And that that slowly developed into a final invasion of Taiwan in 1895, and the Japanese period on Taiwan is one of its most colourful and amazing periods. It was a very difficult period, but there's an awful lot remaining from that period still, and actually you can discover an awful lot about that period just by walking around Taipei and other cities in Taiwan now. It's a fascinating journey over a couple of years to explore that aspect.
So you detail some of the features that relate to that period?
There's a fairly long chapter in the book about the Japanese occupation, and lots of other bits in other chapters about other cities that relate to things that happened during the Japanese period as well.
Now, preparing for your other books, the hiking books in particular, probably the process would have been fairly linear, just figuring out how to approach a trail, or where exactly a trail was. What did you need to do to prepare this book?
The hardest thing was what to leave out, really. Like an original draft of the book had the National Palace Museum in which came out quite early, not because it's not special, but because everybody knows about it. But also things like night markets are very Taiwanese and could easily have gone in the book. They didn't go in the final book because there's just too many other really special places to include.
Wait. So this is a book about traveling Taiwan that leaves out night markets.
Yes,
might be the first ever.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons for writing the book is not to criticize, but the Taiwan Tourist Office does a very good job of advertising the famous places like Alishan, Sun Moon Lake, Troco Gorge, night markets, Taipei 101. So although some of those are in there, but they're only in there incidentally, none of them are actually head and centre in the middle of the book, because those are very well known. This is more about describing the hidden gems of Taiwan, some of the more unusual aspects of Taiwan that many people don't know about. Both culturally, historically, and natural beauty-wise. In all three areas, it's extraordinarily rich, much richer than I thought before I started researching this book.
Right, and so a lot of this is geographically organized, but then you have one section called Aspects of Taiwan that has a lot of features that I had no idea that we had. What's the term? Mud volcanoes?
Taiwan's one of only a handful of countries in the world that have mud volcanoes. There are some in America, there are some in the Middle East, but Taiwan has about 20 of them, and I describe 6 of the best. They're really fascinating. An area down near Taidong and Kaohsiung that has mud volcanoes and these natural eternal flames and badlands landscapes. It's like nowhere else I've ever seen. It's an extraordinary area, but not very well known.
And so what were you focusing on for this section, Aspects of Taiwan? Just, it does have a lot of stuff that I'd never heard of.
Right. It's a bad title. I couldn't come up with a better title. It's literally aspects of it. So there's industrial aspects, natural curiosities that wouldn't fit in a single chapter. Separately they're quite small, but together different places put together in one chapter. Culture, Chinese culture, Taiwanese opera, Chinese opera, Budaishi, the glove puppetry, aspects of Taiwan that don't really work geographically. Like you can see Chinese opera in various places around Taiwan, and eternal flames crop up all over Taiwan. So yeah, it's a chapter of miscellany that really special about Taiwan, really.
And so how would you... Yeah, I thought it was interesting that you included budaishi or glove puppetry. How did you approach that section? I mean, are there places to visit? Are there... How does a traveler get engaged with that aspect of the culture?
Well, budaishi is one of Taiwan's most traditional arts. One of its most ubiquitous. So you see it all over the place. But for budaishi particularly, it's very easy to find because you can go to 2 museums, one in Taipei and one on the north coast. They're 2 very good museums that delve into that. But really, any big traditional festival like Chinese New Year and that, just go down to the local temple, a bigger local temple, and there's a good chance you'll see budaishi or Taiwanese opera being performed there. So they're kind of ubiquitous. They're kind of very much absolutely part of the Taiwanese identity.
Yeah. And just the average traveler walking by might not have quite of a sense of what they're looking at. So is one of your aims here to help travelers put that into context? Absolutely.
I mean, I didn't understand myself. I hadn't been a great fan of Chinese opera and budaishi, so it was a big journey of discovery for myself. Having to research, and you kind of have to understand it yourself before you can write about it. So that was the idea, is to put it not in too much detail, but just enough detail so that people can understand it and hopefully begin to appreciate the sheer artistry of it and just what makes it so special in Taiwan, both budaishi and, opera, Taiwanese opera.
Now, who were you thinking about most when you were writing this book? Because, most travel books are probably for people that are just going to a country for the first time, going to be there for a couple of weeks. But, like I said, there's so many things in here that, I've lived here for a number of years. I've never heard of a lot of this stuff. So perhaps something of a more sophisticated audience that this could be aimed at?
Well, hopefully...
not to pat myself on the back too much.
Well, hopefully a more... I think in Taiwan, a lot of expatriates, so obviously I'm hoping that people that travel here for business will buy it, but really it's for people that live here. And for many friends that I've taken out in the past that can't believe all the places that they get to see on the trips. For people like that have lived here for ages and still don't really know what's so special about Taiwan. When they bring family over, they always go to the same places, and it's a little frustrating because it's so rich, so amazingly rich. And it's really just to show people that there is so much more than most people understand about Taiwan to see, much more than I even understood. It was a huge voyage of discovery for me as well. So it's much personal for me, a personal journey for me as for other readers writing this book.
Now, I've read some of your other writings on, traveling and hiking in Taiwan, and you kind of point out that there's always little details that can really make the difference between a successful trip and an unsuccessful trip. I think in one instance you said, the difference could be knowing about that way station that's kind of tucked behind a 7-Eleven.
Right, yes.
What just to give our listeners something of a sense of what they might find in here, what is really the difference between a successful trip in Taiwan and something that goes, off the rails?
Well, probably the best thing is just to go off the beaten track, which is what I've been doing for ages. Don't stick to to the places that are well known. Go off and just go into the countryside. Take a map, take a Google map or whatever, and just go and explore these places that no one goes to, because so many of them are absolutely amazing. And also, really keep an open mind about it. Because before I wrote this book, I was kind of not really very keen on some of the more traditional aspects of Taiwanese opera, Chinese opera, and that.
Right.
It's really important to keep an open mind to it and understand that this is such an important part of Taiwanese culture, and to understand the background behind it, not just that it's lots of noise, but it has a history behind it. That Taiwan being so rugged, that budaishi, glove puppetry, grew up because they couldn't bring a Chinese opera troupe across the mountains. One person would carry his bag with his puppets, and then he'd be able to perform all over the island just like that. So budaishi has an amazing history, and it's completely linked with Taiwan's topography, which makes it much more interesting than if you're just seeing it on the surface as puppets.
And that's the kind of thing that you would set people up for in this book.
That was my big discovery with it, which gave me a whole new appreciation for budaishi. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Right. So you're saying have an open mind, go off where people haven't gone before. That's kind of easy for you to say, Richard Saunders, man who has been traveling the highways and byways and the backwaters of Taiwan for years and years and years now. But that could be pretty intimidating for average folk like myself that don't perhaps get out quite as much. Is a big aspect of these book helping homebodies such as myself kind of prepare themselves and get the information they would need to follow in your footsteps?
I think since many people have GPS now, it's easier to actually find the way around without actually having to speak Chinese or Chinese. So I think that makes it much easier to get around the island. But really, I think you do have to, in the end, you do still have to have a certain courage to get out and explore. The good thing about Taiwan now, and I've mentioned it in the book, I've gone into fair detail in the book, is that it's much easier to hire cars and scooters for foreigners, but especially cars. So you don't have to be reliant on the bus network in Taiwan now. So it's actually very easy, and they're very foreigner-friendly now to hire out, especially cars. So you can get your way around the island quite easily now. And then, GPS, to find your way. It's much easier to get around the island than it was 20 years ago. You still need a certain courage to get out and explore. And more than anything, you need an enthusiasm to explore. You need an interest, a curiosity in what's out there. And that's probably the main thing I try to do in this book, is to show my enthusiasm, try and develop a curiosity, and that Taiwan has got an awful lot more than most of us actually realise. And hopefully once people have a curiosity about what's out there, they'll overcome that initial problem with that initial resistance against getting out into the countryside and exploring.
Now, kind of picking up on that point that you were just making a second ago, you have been exploring Taiwan for years and years and years and years now. And before you came here, you've told me before that you were already kind of exploring your own home country, the UK, and you're very familiar with that. But certainly, you've spent years and years getting to know Taiwan and focused on this. What would you say there is about Taiwan that has captured so much of your attention? I mean, is there something very particular about this country that lends itself to that kind of exploration?
When I first came to Taiwan, I was immediately captivated by the scenic beauty, and it was scenic beauty and the magnificent mountains were always my main priority until I started writing this book. But then after I started researching, I found out that the culture and the history of the island is also so very special, so amazing, and that kind of brings out the island, makes it even more vivid than it was before. And it's a constant discovery. Even now, after writing this book, I'm still discovering lots of new places. There's so many new places that aren't in the book that I've still got to discover, that I've already discovered. And it keeps me going back for more and more exploring. And you can never really know the whole of Taiwan. So it's a fascinating journey that just continues and just keeps me very enthusiastic about the island.
So, even though Taiwan, geographically speaking, is kind of a small place, there's a lot packed in there.
Oh, there's an incredible amount. I mean, anyone that's there's no way really that you can say you know all of Taiwan. People are discovering new places all the time. There's a canyoneering expedition that's actually just been out recently, and they did the first descent of some incredible canyons. They've never been explored
that way before. Yeah.
Because they're just too remote. Taiwan's an almost mind-blowingly detailed place, just almost mind-blowingly full of amazing places. Just extraordinary. Yeah.
It's hard to get a full appreciation for that. Now, one thing that's not really included in this book, maybe another way to put it, is these are still paper-bound books, and you were telling me that was important to you.
Yes, I've been very resistant for many years. I just bought my first smartphone only last week. Finally bowed to that. Yeah, I should have had it ages ago. Trouble is, I'm always on the smartphone now. I realise why I didn't buy it before. Eventually, I know
it's already wrecking you. Oh no!
Maybe it's my age, but I'm very resistant to modern technology. Probably the main reason I keep with physical books. First of all, I just like the feel of a book in my hand, but also an e-book. If you're reading an e-book, you're more likely to take it with you, and you're more likely to take it on the trail, and then you're more focused on reading the e-book rather than actually. Or doing other things on your phone rather than actually putting the book down because it's too heavy and actually going out and exploring the city.
So you're saying this is homework. This is stuff you should do before you go.
This should be done at home before you go. Of course, you can quietly photocopy a few pages if you want. But the idea is that a big book in your hand is less convenient than having your phone in your hand, and it's just too distracting.
So you're saying that you don't think that people should have really anything between them and what they're visiting.
Well, not if they really want to understand it. Yeah. In the same way that when you have a phone in your hand, you have Google Maps or you have your own map app in your book, and then you're more likely to be using the map and type in your destination and then just be following the map, following the phone around with your eyes buried in the phone rather than looking out and exploring. And part of the fun of exploring really should be getting lost. You're following the books and you're going to get lost a few times, but that's part of the exploration. When you have a GPS app in your phone, when you have a map in your phone and you're following the way to a point in the map, you're following the way to a point on the phone. You're basically just following it, and there's no sense of exploration. There's no sense of doing it yourself. You're just following a route that's on the phone for you,
and you're not thinking about it. I think that's another big thing.
You're not involved in the local environment at all.
Right.
You're buried in your technology.
Right. Yeah. And if you don't have that map, you really have to notice that feature over there, remember it, engage with it a little bit, and so it really changes your frame of reference.
Well, exactly, and you explore more. You get lost. You explore. You're more involved in what you're seeing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually, I think that this book, and it's going to sound like I'm just going out of my way to just plug it, but I actually really mean this. I feel like this book is honestly the perfect book for somebody like me, because I just visited Tainan recently, and I left my apartment, or I left my hotel room, and I was kind of wandering around, and I was like, okay, this city has so much history, I should go to one of the old buildings. I walk up to one of the old buildings, and all of the English signs really don't give any context or whatsoever, and you don't get any of a feel for it. And I kind of wander around the old building for a couple of minutes, and I think to myself, okay, I was hoping I would connect with this old building, and I'm feeling nothing. Time for me to head to a bar. I gave up really fast.
Yeah.
And so the idea here really is to give somebody something meatier to latch onto, so they can make more of a connection than I was able to make.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there's a specific problem with Tainan. It tends not to reveal its secrets to someone that comes just for the day. And I had exactly the same feeling when I was there.
Yeah.
You have to learn more about the background. And in Taiwan, the best way is to know somebody who lives there and spend some time there and take you to the out and back places. But yes, really with the book, the idea is to give you some background so you can understand and appreciate more about the background of what you're seeing. So instead of just seeing a building, you're seeing a building with history that's been modified over the centuries. That's had some of the buildings in Tainan, especially the temples, have had monumental events, very important events in Taiwan's history have happened in them. So once you know that, then it's more than just a building, than an attractive temple with lots of beautiful, colourful decorations and people going about their business. It has a background, it has a story behind it, which is what you really need to understand and appreciate it.
Right. All right. Well, on that note, we just got a couple of quick pieces of business to attend to before we go. So among the many contributions that you have made to Explorers of Taiwan, let's just remind our listeners very quickly, is a certain Facebook group that helps people get out there and explore Taiwan as well. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I run a group called Taipei Hikers. We take people voluntarily, all the trips are free, out on day trips, mostly hikes, but during the summer, as in the summer heat now, a lot of river tracing, trips to waterfalls where you can go swimming. We do that as most weekends. We've got about 12 or 14 leaders that take anyone that's welcome, and anyone is welcome as long as they're fit enough to join us on some of the harder trips. You need a certain level of experience, and we welcome all walkers and explore not only Taiwan but also occasionally abroad.
Very cool. So that's one way to get involved. And before I let you go, just want to let our listeners know that you actually are leaving the country between June and August. You are going to go on a very long hike in the UK.
Yeah, I'm going to start a walk across England from Dover, which is in the southeast corner of England, all the way up to Durness and Cape Wrath at the northwest tip of Scotland. It's a 3-month walk, 1,200 miles, in aid of charity. One of the charities will be in England, and the other one will be a charity called the Pax Sanctuary up in Sanja, in New Taipei City, and they look after abandoned animals, abused animals.
And if folks want to learn more and contribute, where do they go to learn that?
The easiest first place to go is to go to my Facebook group, Taipei Hikers. During the walk, I'm going to be posting regular updates and regular links to the blog and the other Facebook page that I have directly linked to the trek. And there'll be there'll be details on how to give donations if you'd like to either of those charities.
All right, so that's another thing for people to remember out there, another way to get involved. Getting back to the book again, the name of the book is Taiwan 101, Essential Sites, Hikes, and Experiences on Ilha Formosa. Folks out there can buy it at the Community Services Center website or their offices. It will also be available in a couple of weeks at local bookstores such as Esleet and Caves. The man again is Richard Saunders, and thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Keith.
Thanks for listening to another podcast edition of Taiwan Talk. Taiwan Talk is ICRT's weekly interview segment, bringing you conversations from and about Taiwan. You can catch it every Monday at 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. right after the top of the hour newscast. You can also find the podcasted version, just like the one you just heard, online at the ICRT website, on iTunes, and the ICRT blog. If you do make your way over to the ICRT blog, please do leave a comment while you're there. We would love to hear what you have to say about what we're talking about, or to get just, your thoughts on the show, anything like that. That is it for the show for today, though. Signing off from the ICRT studios, I'm Keith Menconi. See you next time.